I saw similar problems in the industry I was dealing with in terms of big core systems, big companies that couldn't sort of get out of their own way to stitch together, system A that had to talk to system B that, sort of disrupted customer experience, disrupted, people trying to get care. And, talking to, yourself and Ryan about the, sort of like the challenges within insurance, I saw like a lot of synergies. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting that, there's similar problems with core systems, similar problems with customer experience. And I really see an opportunity in being able to sort of like make an impact here and help solve that.
Jason, thank you for being on the show.
Definitely.
So I call this the Insurance Experience Podcast. And my goal behind doing this was, in my job, I sort of come across a lot of people in the industry, people that sell software, people that work in the industry. And I've personally been very curious and fascinated by the people who work in the industry and why they do what they do. Why do they work in this industry? And obviously, I know you personally really well. And I wanted to sort of bring your story out. So maybe we start with you just sharing with everyone who you are.
Yeah. So Jason St. Pierre. So I'm a lead product at Liberate. Prior to being at Liberate, I've done a series of, small startups, big companies, but been in product for the better part of, my career anyway. So, and, been at sort of like the head of product here for 2.5 years since we founded the company.
And what got you into insurance?
So, I was working, prior to being in the insurance industry with health insurance, healthcare providers at Verily, which is Alphabet's, life sciences health company. And, I saw very similar problems in the industry I was dealing with in terms of big core systems, big companies that couldn't sort of get out of their own way to stitch together, system A that had to talk to system B that, sort of disrupted customer experience, disrupted, people trying to get care. And, talking to, yourself and Ryan about the, sort of like the challenges within insurance, I saw like a lot of synergies. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting that, there's similar problems with core systems, similar problems with customer experience. And I really see an opportunity in being able to sort of like make an impact here and help solve that. So, and it was also happened to be at a time where I was doing something where I was, dealing with more of navigating and sort of managing big company politics versus actually building. And I was curious to get back to building again. So the problem and timing worked out quite well.
Let's dig into this sort of concept of core systems and complexity and sort of connecting these systems together. You've been at Liberate now for 2.5 years, and you've interacted with so many insurance companies. From a technologist mindset, I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound too trivial, but why is it that big of a deal? Why is it so hard to connect these systems together? Why is it so hard to achieve some end outcome? Because essentially just connect this with that and write some code and then get it done. But you've obviously developed some perspective now. Why are things so technically hard to achieve?
Even when you're working at, a company that's, very technology forward, maybe something again, like a Verily, you're trying to solve as you're building and you're moving fast and you're encountering, customer problems and needs, you're trying to build very sort of like purpose-built solutions based on the problem of the week and problem of the month. So you're solving sort of like problems at a time, which makes sense in any size company. It makes sense in, whether you're a small, mid-sized insurance company or whether you're like a big, healthcare company. You're trying to solve very particular problems. And you're not always thinking about the foresight of, okay, if I build this now, how is that going to impact 2 years from now? I want to like add 6 more features or, integrate 2 more systems, or this new problem I've never even thought about. So inevitably, whenever you're trying to, release something for customers based on a new need that comes up or a new product line or a new market you want to enter, or just technology changes, the advent of AI and how you take advantage of that, you're stuck with disparate systems, disparate processes, maybe knowledge that has left your company, maybe technology that's no longer supported anymore. It's just sort of how you naturally have grown your business over time. And that problem manifests itself into like almost paralysis when you try to release, try to enter a new market, because you look at how are we possibly going to internationalize? How are we possibly going to, migrate, all the customer data from system A to system B? And it seems so trivial just to do something on the surface, like, oh, just introduce this new product to your customers.
Yeah.
But the 32 systems that it has to interact with are sometimes feel so daunting they don't even want to embark. You don't even want to embark in that.
Got it. So there's an element of fear that there's too much to do, and the opposite of that is you have to do a lot of planning and analysis to recognize that, to sort of encapsulate the complexity of embarking on an initiative and plan quite a bit before you go and execute. Is there a better way? Is there a different way? Like, if you were to, like, is that the only way you can actually innovate or use technologies in this industry? Or I'm not asking from as an aspirational question. I'm actually genuinely curious. Is there any other way to do this?
Yeah, I think that you're always going to be stuck with some sort of cruft that you're going to have to navigate. So I think some level of planning is dissecting, your current architecture is going to be required in any of these scenarios. I'd say really probably the best thing you can do is to try to figure out how you can sort of like abstract away parts of your system to carve out pieces of technology, pieces of user experiences that impact the least amount. So I think that like having, and this started to, this sort of like process started to occur more with like service-oriented architectures, right? And that's like what you're trying to do. So I think that's even sort of having that more forward in mind, and having, sort of like, and I guess I don't know a good way to describe it, but I think that inevitably you're going to have to deal with that problem. But the more you can sort of like componentize how you build things, yeah,
sort of separate the concerns to bring it
exactly.
together. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and sort of going back to this concept of insurance experience and how that shapes insight. What's your sort of personal story? Like, have you ever had to deal with your insurance company? Have you ever had to file a claim? And if you'd have, what insight did you get out of it that helped you do better at your day job?
Yeah, I think that I have had to file a claim. I've had to file claims for, minor fender benders before. And I think that, fortunately for that process for me, at least when I had to do that, it was relatively straightforward. I think that something that's, stuck with me is when I had to file a claim for an accident that someone had related to a dog that I owned. And that person got injured just due to dogs playing in a dog park. And that was a very scary and like emotional experience, because I didn't know actually how that was going to end. And it wasn't a completely straightforward process. So I think that how that helped me is understanding the mindset of like sort of like the empathy of the customer at the end, and knowing that like sometimes when you're building this technology, it's just like, okay, just, you're going to build a thing where someone's going to submit some information of what happened, and then eventually someone's going to get back to them with a result.
Yeah.
But the emotional side of who's filing that's not accurate. They don't know if they're going to if they're getting sued. They don't know if the claim's going to be approved. They don't know if they're going to, all of these things went through my head in terms of, how large this claim would have been, and sort of trying to figure out how we can create, a Liberate or whatever, at least an experience that enables carriers to provide some level of like comfort and assurance to end users as they're going through the flow, the status of the claim, easy ways to talk, etc. I think really sort of resonated with me anyway.
It's so interesting how when you're building technology, and I had this personal experience as well, how understanding the mindset of the consumer or the emotional state of the consumer when going through an interaction with the technology has such a profound impact on how you build that technology. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so exciting. I think for me, the understanding that was what enabled me to be better at my day job, and so very similar to how you experienced it. So let's switch gears again. If you look out, right, you're incredibly experienced, you understand the industry well, you've got deep technology exposure across many different industries. What's the one thing that excites you a lot when sort of looking towards the future?
I remember back into the time when, I worked at a company called Quattro Wireless that did mobile advertising, and right around the time the iPhone came out. And I remember that there was some level of skepticism when the iPhone first came out about companies need to create, a mobile presence. Like, do I really need to, are people really going to go to my website, New York
Yeah.
Times, on a phone? Do I really need to advertise there? There's some level of skepticism over, how important that was. And I think that obviously, as we all know, rapidly changed fast, that now we have responsive designs and apps and et cetera. And that's kind of like a, very sort of standard thing. You don't even think about it. And I think that the way that consumers interact in insurance is right now is very disparate. It's pen and paper, it's phone, it's text, it's website, and it's kind of like pretty hard to sort of like make sense of that. And I think that the ability to interface with a single multimodality within AI, I think is actually going to start to become more ubiquitous, almost like mobile web became ubiquitous. I think that the concept of, interacting with an AI agent from the front end user interface standpoint, I think that's actually going to become more common. And I think that, when we talk to customers about things we do for them, there's, initially sometimes met with a little bit of skepticism, but, jump in and, excited to see where virtual agents can assist them in their business. And then
Can you explain that a little bit more? So when you say virtual assistant or AI agent, what do you mean?
yeah, essentially it's a virtual employee that you may have at your company, whatever that is. So imagine a virtual front desk receptionist that can, field a phone call and, file a claim on your behalf, or field a phone call and, help you, get an insurance rate, or, in other industries, schedule a doctor's appointment for you, or what that be. And, being able to sort of see how we can, at Liberate, we are able to build virtual agents for insurance, and we're able to integrate with, back-end systems at insurance companies, which is, very, sort of, I think, unique for our platform and exciting. But the interface to get to these agents can be text, it can be email, it can be voice, it can be via the web, and they can do things on your behalf. And I think it's actually going to accelerate the need for insurance companies to think about how they take advantage of this, because other companies are going to start to, if you're sort of not taking advantage of this, other companies are going to scale. They're going to scale faster. They're going to be able to provide cheaper services because they're scaling faster with quote unquote cheaper, faster employees. So, I think that excites me, because I think that we play a great role there in enabling that ecosystem of, providing these army of, workers for companies, but then also at the same time, being able to sort of make sense of the first problem I discussed, which is, helping folks sort of componentize and modularize pieces of their back-end system so that these agents can, interact and talk to them. But I think we're going to see sort of like I foresee a rapid evolution of people being more comfortable interacting with something that's not an actual person, over the next 4 or 5 years.
How does that sort of like, I guess, jibe with what we were talking earlier about the emotional state of the person that's filing a claim, for example, right? Like how is that going to align with the fact that they experience interacting with an AI agent at a time where they just need help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with some of these, models and things that you can take advantage of now, and foundational models, being able to, really figure out the best way to tune and react to that emotional state, I think is important. So I think that, being able to understand how you may decide that a claims agent has a sort of different tone and personality than whatever, someone who's just going to book appointments, right? You maybe have different tonality between the two. But I think really it's, understanding that one of the biggest frustrations in one of these processes is kind of not knowing where your claim is, as an example, at any given time. And you have to scheduling, callbacks, no one's calling you back. You don't really know. And I think being able to, in this example, in this world, being able to call the same phone number every day if you want, and having someone not frustrated answer the phone, knowing who you are, because, they know your phone number. Hi, Jason, I assume you're calling about your claim.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I have an update for you, right? And answers on the first ring every day, gives you comfort. You can call 20 times that day if you want. And I think that, as an example, can really sort of help someone throughout the process, if in an experience that could be emotional.
So that's super interesting, right? So imagine a world where, okay, everyone's got these AI agents, and yeah, some companies have it, some don't. There's a clear difference, and how they are perceived as beneficial, as providing a service or value back to the consumer is going to really matter. Will consumer behavior change in a world where there are these AI agents?
I hope.
Okay.
I think, if we're looking out, who knows how many years from now, and we truly get into this agentic, sort of ecosystem, I think that you may find a world, and this is again, out there. This is what I believe may happen. I think you may find a world where you wake up in the morning and you decide you need new car insurance rates. So you tell Siri,
Yeah.
I'd like to know the best rate I can get today. Siri knows everything about you. Siri knows where you live. Siri knows your address. Siri knows, various things. And whatever insurance companies out there that have, exposed a way, or even they don't have to expose a way, they just have a phone, but
Yeah.
a way for your own, agent to go at the end of the day, come back to you and tell you all your quotes, I think is like a real thing that may happen. Book me a dentist appointment today. Find a dentist that's available next Tuesday. I think that's a thing. So I think that there's going to be a world of agents interacting with agents someday, and that's my hope. And that's sort of like where I think it's exciting for me to see like how at least the things I do on a day-to-day basis may actually play a part in that. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
Jason, thank you for being on the show.
great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.